Assalamualaikum. Biology 11th class. Most important short questions and answers. इस वीडियो में मौजूद तमाम क्वेश्चंस ALP या स्मार्ट सिलेबस के मुताबिक हैं। तमाम क्वेश्चंस अहम हैं, आप अच्छी तरह याद कर लें। अगर आपने मेरे चैनल को अभी तक सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया तो अभी सब्सक्राइब कर लें और बेल आइकॉन को भी दबा दें। बहुत शुक्रिया। What is unique about the structure of bacterial ribosomes? They are smaller than eukaryotic ribosomes and are of 70S, where S is equal to Swedberg units. What is the percentage of water in brain cells of man? The percentage of water in brain cells of man is 85%. State two parallel characteristics of ascomycetes and basidiomycetes. Number 1. Both have septate hyphae. Number 2. Both have lengthy dikaryotic phase in their life cycle. By what means can individuals in imperfect fungi be classified? Biologists now can classify most imperfect fungi on the basis of DNA sequences. Name the bacterium that has no cell wall. Mycoplasma can live independently with no cell wall. Draw the three bacterial shapes. Number 1. Spherical called coccus. Number 2. Rod shape called bacillus. Number 3. Spiral called spirillum. Give a single characteristic that differentiates Zygomycota and Basidiomycota. Zygomycota have co-anocytic hyphae which have no septa, while Basidiomycota have septate hyphae. What are mycorrhizae? Mycorrhizae are mutualistic association between certain fungi and roots of vascular plants. About 95% of all kinds of vascular plants. List the processes blocked by mitochondrial failure in a cell. Krebs cycle, aerobic respiration, fatty acid metabolism, etc. Why are fats considered as high energy compounds? Because of higher proportion of carbon-hydrogen bonds and very low proportion of oxygen, lipids store double the amount of energy as compared to the same amount of any carbohydrate. What is fungus? A fungus is usually a filamentous, multicellular or multinucleate, spore-bearing, eukaryotic, absorptive heterotroph, usually a saprobe having cell wall made up of chitin. What is a prosthetic group? If the non-protein part is covalently bonded to protein part of enzyme, it is called as prosthetic group. For example, NAD. NAD. Define inhibitors of enzyme. An inhibitor is a chemical substance which can react in place of substrate with the enzyme but is not transformed into product or products and thus blocks the active site temporarily or permanently. For example, poisons like cyanide, antibiotics, anti-metabolites and some drugs. How does an enzyme accelerate a metabolic reaction? Enzymes lower the amount of activation energy needed. The reduction in activation energy by the enzyme accelerates a metabolic reaction. Write 2 characteristics of enzymes. आपको जो भी 2 इजी लगती हैं वो आप कर लें. Number 1. All enzymes are globular proteins. Number 2. They increase the rate of reaction without themselves being used up. Number 3. Their presence does not affect the nature or properties of end products. Number 4. They lower the activation energy of the reactions. Number 5. Some enzymes require a cofactor for their proper functioning. What will happen if a chromosome loses its centromere? When a chromosome loses its centromere, it cannot attach to the mitotic spindle and remains in the cytoplasm, and this leads to the chromosomal fragmentation. How does autophagy help in converting a tadpole larva into an adult amphibian? Autophagy helps in converting a tadpole larva into an adult amphibian by removing tails and gills from its body during metamorphosis in the tadpole. Is there any similarity between bacterial and plant cell wall? Number 1. Both are non-living. Number 2. Both do not act as barrier to materials which pass through it. Number 3. Both cellulose found in plant cell wall and polysaccharide as a constituent of peptidoglycan present in bacterial cell wall are carbohydrate. Describe various movements involved in the transport of materials across the cell membrane. Diffusion, osmosis, facilitated diffusion, active transport, and passive transport. State various structural modifications in a cell involved in secretions. Following modifications occur. Number 1. Proteins are modified into glycoproteins by the addition of carbohydrates. Number 2. Lipids are modified into glycolipids by the addition of carbohydrates. Number 3. Polysaccharides are also formed. Do any other microbial groups besides bacteria have prokaryotic cells? Yes. Cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, have prokaryotic cells. Name general characteristics that could be used to define the prokaryotes. Number 1. No nucleus. Number 2. No membrane-bounded nucleus. Number 3. DNA in cytoplasm. Number 4. Cell wall contains peptidoglycan. Number 5. Binary fission. List functions that the cell membrane performs in bacteria. Number 1. Regulation of transport of proteins, nutrients, etc. Number 2. Respiratory metabolism. Number 3. Endocytosis. Number 4. Exocytosis. Number 5. Homeostasis. A gram-stained discharge from an abscess shows cocci in irregular grape-like clusters. What is the most likely genus of this bacterium? The genus of this bacterium is Staphylococcus. What is the general formula for amino acids? H2N, amino group, hydrogen, alpha carbon, carboxyl group. Write 2 characteristics of protozoa. Number 1. All protozoans are unicellular. Number 2. Most ingest their food by endocytosis. Write 2 characteristics of dinoflagellates. Number 1. Most dinoflagellates are unicellular. Number 2. Their cells are often covered with shells of interlocking cellulose plates impregnated with silicates. Write 2 characteristics of diatoms. The cell wall of each diatom consists of 2 shells that overlap where they are together, much like a petri dish. Number 2. Silica is deposited in the shell, and this glass-like material is laid down in intricate patterns. Write 2 characteristics of slime molds. Number 1. The feeding stage of a slime mold is a plasmodium, a multinucleate mass of cytoplasm that can grow to 30 cm or 1 foot in diameter. Number 2. During unfavorable conditions, slime mold forms resistant haploid spore by meiosis within stalked structures called sporangia. Why is green mold more likely to contaminate an orange kept in a refrigerator than are bacteria? Green molds are more likely to contaminate an orange kept in a refrigerator than bacteria because they can grow at lower temperatures such as found in the normal refrigerator. Give a single characteristic that differentiates Zygomycota and Basidiomycota. Zygomycota have co-anocytic hyphae which have no septa, while Basidiomycota have septate hyphae. Name sexual and asexual spores of ascomycetes. Ascospores are sexual spores, while conidia are asexual spores of ascomycetes. To which phyla do yeasts belong? How do they differ from other fungi? Yeasts belong to 3 phyla of fungi, that is, Ascomycota, Basidiomycota, and Deuteromycota, but majority of yeast belong to phylum Ascomycota. They differ from other fungi being unicellular and non-hyphal. What is the composition of fungal cell wall and how is this composition advantageous to fungi? The cell wall of fungus lacks cellulose and has chitin. Chitin gives the cell wall rigidity and strength and is resistant to decay than cellulose and lignin, which make up the plant cell wall. What is hypha? What is the advantage of having incomplete septa? Hypha is a microscopic slender branched tube or filament of cytoplasm bounded by cell walls made of chitin and may or may not have septa. Incomplete septa allow the mixing of cytoplasm from cell to cell, carrying the minerals to growing tips and enabling the hyphae to grow more rapidly when food and water are abundant and temperature is favorable.